Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. Here we are. We're going. I'm excited. You just sort of flip that switch and then it is go time. And I can't wait to introduce you to our guest today. She is an absolute badass, entrepreneur, marketing thought leader, technology innovator. And these are my words. This is all the things that I've experienced, and I've known her for just a little bit now. And really for her, it's all about changing the game, not accepting the status quo. Oh, this is how we always did it. No. Smash and grab. And that's going to play perfectly into today's show. I can't wait for you all to learn from her. I can't wait to learn from her. She has a passion for marketing analytics, which is so important for marketers today. She's a battle-hardened veteran of public relations, principal owner of Oros Analytics, founder and principal of Koch Communications. Kym Koch, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Casey. Good to be here.
Man, you're doing so much these days.
It's been a little busy lately, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you've been really pushing boundaries and trying different things, and you're innovating. So I'm going to stop talking over here and I'm going to pass you something. It's kind of heavy, but I know you work out. So here you go. Okay. So here we go. Thor's hammer. Take that. You got it?
Yes.
Look at that backhand grab. Do you play tennis?
Dang. Yes, I do.
Well, I can tell clearly. You took Thor's hammer with just one hand. Here I'm like carrying it with two hands, and I'm, bending from the knees, of course. But take Thor's hammer and smash for me some kind of marketing myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Set the record straight once and for all.
Okay. I think a myth that needs to be broken or smashed is that you cannot prove the true value of your marketing efforts, particularly to the bottom line.
Man, what a myth. Yeah.
I think a lot of people believe that because it's too hard. There's too much data. You can only prove so much. You can only, the marketing data stops at the native platform and you can't dig any further, or it's too hard to look at this and then look at that and then look at this and all these data points and determine what where the value lies. And I think a lot of people just think it's too hard, or they just think the efforts themselves, because digital marketing in particular, changes so much so quickly that just executing takes all your time and energy, and the report, just slap a PowerPoint together and do some key points and a graphic and maybe some video and a dog and pony, and it'll be good enough.
And when you first mentioned this, I immediately thought of the leadership team not believing marketing in justification. But what I get from you as well is oftentimes worse than all of that is the marketer themselves not believing that they can show the ROI. And if you can't prove yourself, man, you are the first to go when there's a problem or there's a COVID or there's a situation in your company, and they gotta lighten up the load. If you're not proving yourself, you're usually the first out.
Right. And I think historically that has been marketing, right?
Yeah.
I'm a marketer forever. And because you can't prove, or because marketers think you can't prove marketing as a business driver, then you're out. I mean, when it comes time to budget, marketing is always seen as extra, right?
Right.
It'd be great to have marketing when we have the budget. But when our sales are down, boy, marketing goes out the window. And that's the last time you should do that, right?
And we're extra because we're not proving it, right? Sales by default is showing the deal,
right?
All the other people are kind of showing, look, if I didn't do this, and you wouldn't have the sprocket, or you wouldn't have the product to sell. But in sales when we sold it, marketing's like, we kind of make it all work, and it's like, yeah, but that's not good enough.
Yeah. And sales is always proving, right? Sales is driven to prove. They're always saying, look what we brought home. Here's our effort, and look what we brought in. And you can always do the ROI, or you can just always see what they're doing in the bottom line. And that's what I believe every company owner or CEO wants to see. That's where the rubber meets the road for them to their board. And so that's where marketing has to prove itself. And I just don't think historically marketing has done that. And I think it's because marketers think it's too hard to do. Takes too much time. I mean, our philosophy has always been, right, get clients, do something amazing for them, tell them what you did. It's really, it's that simple when you boil it down, right? I think marketing, or at least if I look at my own firm, I think that's where we fell down. That's where we've always fallen down, is tell them what we did. Or the report just says, here were our execution efforts, right? And what does the CEO care about that? They're like, okay, yeah, that's fine, right? But what did it get me? What's the value of your efforts? And we intrinsically know them as marketers, right? We know we moved the needle. We know we had some brand awareness. Now we know we had clicks to open and web traffic on the right thing. But I just don't think we ever have spent the time to make those connections for the business owner or the CEO to say, this is our true value, and you shouldn't be cutting us when the budget rolls around. You should be giving us more money to do more of what we're doing, because we're driving those qualified leads to your sales team and looking for more qualified leads to build out that sales team's pool, right?
Right. And I think sometimes even worse is if you're not proving it out, you may not even believe it anymore. So when you mentioned that sometimes we intrinsically know it, I think there's a lot of marketers who also don't, who aren't even sure. And if you're not even sure, just this happens. If you're not even sure you do anything in the company either, then of course you're not going to try to prove it. And man, that just sucks to have a job that you don't really know if you're contributing or not. So hard or not, you got to do this. If that's what we shouldn't be doing, what is the right answer? How do we prove it? Is it always hard? Does it have to be hard? How do you address
this? It's
this?
getting easier. I think digital media has made it easier. I do think the hard part lies in the first step, really, for me, and that is the strategy, right? And everybody does a marketing strategy, right? Everybody builds a marketing strategy, and that is typically based on the business strategy itself. So if you're an agency, you go in and you ask the client, what is your business strategy? And then you build out a marketing strategy that supports that, right? Mm-hmm. Same with the marketing department. We build our marketing strategy that aligns with business strategy of the company. Where sometimes marketing agencies fall down is they don't build out a measurement strategy. I think that's the first step, right? So here's our marketing strategy. Don't just send that up the chain and have it be blessed without saying, and here's how we're going to prove the value of that strategy in real numbers that you care about, CEO or CMO or CFO, right? Here's where we're going to prove that what we're strategizing and the efforts that we're working on are working towards the bottom line. The measurement strategy, the KPIs that you determine are going to show your efforts are step number one. You have to have that, because otherwise it's just execution. It's just, we're going to build this, we're going to have this campaign, we're going to have this, and then we're going to hear from sales of, yes, that brought some interesting leads, or it's just too vague. It's just too vague. So if you build the strategy yourself, then you have a little bit more control over what you're watching to make sure that you're aligned, and what you show up the chain, right, to the client or to the CEO.
Wow.
C-suite, if you
Two
will.
powerful things in that. One is just not, if you don't do this, you're deferring to sales's feedback to the CEO. And there's something about sales's feedback that is never usually positive about marketing.
Right. They're just not sending us the qualified leads, right? They're just not sending who we want.
We sent the number, but the quality stinks. Or they sent the quality, but the numbers stink. There's something about them. Relying on them to keep your job for you is just not where you want to be. I love that you're saying, if you do the marketing strategy, and you got to do the marketing strategy,
right,
have a measurement strategy. And then what you had said, which really appealed to me, and I wrote this down, is put it down in terms that they need to hear, in the business terms, not some quirky marketing terms that no one's going to understand. and nobody cares about your term. They want to know the business terms.
Right, exactly. And it's what they speak. They speak KPIs, business KPIs. And so if
Yes.
you can track it, your measurement strategy all the way to their business KPIs, you've got them. You've hooked them right there. Right.
Boom.
And then the next thing you have to do, and this is a little intense, right, is gather all the data. Gather not just the marketing data, right? So you have your realm of data from your Facebook channels and your email, and from the what other channels you're executing, a website, obviously, Google Analytics. Gather all that data, but then pull in the sales data, pull in the point of sale system if it's a retailer, pull in the CRM, pull in all the data that company or client uses to measure its business KPIs, right? Because that's how, again, you're trying to entice them to look at marketing as though it's a business driver. Well, how can you know if you're not layering the marketing efforts over the business efforts, the marketing KPIs, the measurement strategy KPIs over the business KPIs? You can't know unless you're layering those. So it's a huge effort, but it's totally worth it. And then that's, again, where you involve sales and anyone else in the business who's tracking those KPIs. And you agree on what I believe these marketing metrics align with the KPIs that you're wanting to track. And the business, owner or the CEO, C-suite says, yes, we agree with that. We agree that if these KPIs are what we're targeting for marketing and we layer it over our business KPIs, this will work. Let's try this. So now you have buy-in, right?
Buy-in.
Yeah.
That means they're in there with you, right? So I think buy-in, part of that, they're in the boat with you. So they're less likely to be like, you sunk the boat, you stink, you're out, because they're in there with you and you had buy-in from them. Example
of that is that's where you have that conversation with sales to say, okay, what is a qualified lead? What are the definitions? Because we're going to build that in to our personas and everyone we're targeting. So when they say, well, you didn't bring us who we wanted, we can say, well, this is the definition you gave us. And this is the definition of, how we're targeting. You can see what we're writing in our targets, right? You can see exactly what we're doing.
That's such a great point. So huge. I think sometimes people try to get in this territorial battle of, well, if it's called a marketing defined lead or whatever the case may be, we define it, we decide it. But no, sales is your customer in this situation. Right. And so what a great point you made around, and even just a way, like people should just hit rewind 30 seconds and hear the way you said it, which is cool. What do you want? Right? Like, I'm not going to judge you. If you tell me you want pink elephants with, who speak French, cool. I'll get your pink elephant. Like, that's great.
Right. If my job is to help you reach your goals, which it obviously is, then tell me what you're aiming for and let me help you do it. And the other thing, the number of people is same kind of thing. Have that question. And that's where you get into, okay, efforts in one channel or ad spend in one channel. If your sales team or whomever in the C-suite thinks we should spend in this particular channel, test it out. If it's not working, that's another good conversation to have, to say, hey, we blasted this particular channel. We didn't get a lot. We didn't get a lot of numbers here, not a lot of qualified leads. So we think we should test over here and see if we have a little more success. Again, you're pulling them in as a partner to say, this is the number that you wanted, but we don't think we're going to get that number in this channel. So let's look at another channel. You good with that? Let's go.
I think what's important about that is that oftentimes people are trying to dictate the how to you. And I think that's where we get in tricky situations. If your goal is to get 300 of these of this pink elephant quality, then, let us go find those for you. But don't say, go get them for me from LinkedIn or from, from X trade show, because that trade show, if we're properly tracking, may show that you get 0 from that. And we just wasted $30K. So let us do our job, which is figuring out where to place the bets to get those numbers that you're looking for. Don't necessarily, dictate a particular thing, or, oh, the spam you send is always great, I love it. Well,
Yeah.
the data shows it's not. So,
Right.
so let us work on
Right.
that in
So
our
let's-
laboratory over here. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. The worst client phrase is, I went to a conference one time.
Right.
They start a sentence with that. You're like, oh no. And that usually follows with, okay, we should be doing more in LinkedIn or whatever. Not saying LinkedIn is a bad channel. It's just, who knows, right? The
Well,
marketing.
for ads, it very well might be. Let me just tell you that much. And then all you have left after that is LinkedIn spam, and that's not very good either. So I think I'll leave LinkedIn for another part of my list. But yeah, your point is totally true. It's a matter of, it doesn't matter the source per se. It's getting what you want to get, and cringing whenever you hear that someone heard something at a trade show, but if they did say they heard it on the Hardcore Marketing Show, you probably are just exuberant, and excited to hear what idea they came up with.
Exactly. But again, that's another reason why the data will help you prove what you're doing is working.
100%.
Plus, it's layered. Again, it's layered. Your marketing data is layered over their sales data. I was talking to someone not too long ago, and this leads me to the next point, which is you have those key performance indicators that you've mapped out, and then your staff, let's say you're an agency or a marketing director, and now your staff is executing on those key performance indicator. And if that data is layered in a live dashboard according to your measurement strategy, then you are looking at a dashboard just like in your car, right? Do I have enough oil? Am I going the right speed? Am I in the right lane? I mean, those are all things that your staff needs to be looking at in the middle of the campaign to see, do we need to move ad spend? But I was talking to a friend about this and said, man, if we could see that, that would be excellent, because we were in the middle of a campaign. Our marketing department was in the middle of a campaign. And in the middle of the campaign, we found out that all of the leads that we were driving to the sales department was on PTO. The whole department.
Oh, geez.
It'd been nice to know, but they're sending all these leads, right? And so your key performance indicators on your marketing side are working, but it's not going all the way through to the sales department. They're not making the calls, right? So you're not getting.
No one's home. They didn't leave like Fred back at the sales layer to at least call somebody. What is this company doing?
Another reason, obviously, to talk to the sales department, right? And engage them to say, hey, let's not do that campaign this week because everybody's off that day.
It's so important to be in the loop with each other on what campaigns are happening, bandwidth, because I think we forget that it's not enough just to have them convert, whatever. If sales needs to call them, we need our partners in crime over here to execute their end. And if there's something in the way, we should probably know about it.
Right. If my key performance indicators is that I sent this many leads and you called on them, then that's why I need to know.
Right. But if it was just, I sent them, that's where we get in trouble. If you just have your siloed data, to your point.
I sent you these leads and what you did with them is your business. I think that's where marketing, if we don't go all the way through to the very end, I think that's where we get the axe, not sales, right?
100%.
Because we didn't prove it all the way through. So, but one of the things that we learned just on our digital agency side is that our reports, which often were 40 pages long, right? Paper, PowerPoint, whatever you want to call them. And they were after the fact. 5 days after the month, we would put this 40-page report together of all the wonderful things that we did on the digital channels, right? Well, okay, again, because we didn't have a measurement strategy that was tied into the business strategy that was layered against all of the other data, we couldn't report on anything live. We couldn't say this campaign is going well. Sometimes we would look at individual channels and see if they were performing well, right? Mm-hmm. But we couldn't look at a dashboard and say, this is performing well, this is not performing well. Perhaps we should move ad spend and call the client and say, let's move some money. Let's just try it and see. I mean, we do that with creative, right? We pull stuff and we put We A/B test it, we pull stuff out because it's not performing, we put it back in, but we don't do that from a channel to channel because it's too difficult to see one data set against another unless it's all layered together in a dashboard against the business data.
Right.
So that really helps you track. And if you're an agency, you can just call the client up and say, hey, do you want to take a look at the dashboard and see what you think of the performance? Do you want to move ad budget in the middle of this campaign? What do you think? Or they can say no, because now they can see trends month over month, year over year. And like, no, it's not enough of a dip for us to worry. But wow, you're making that decision mid-campaign, not after the fact. You're not poring over millions of data points trying to determine where did this fail, or when should we have moved money.
It can be hard doing that, looking at things after the fact. You don't remember the context. Did anyone record what happened that day? Well, that day the phones were out, or that day,
exactly,
something happened on Good Morning America. And if you didn't log it, if you didn't, annotate that something critical happened and you don't know. So you're right. Being able to change things mid-stride can be really powerful. Right. Because then you don't wait for the lagging indicator. At least you can do something about it, right? If you were waiting until the end of the campaign to realize sales was out for half of it, right, all you can do is point fingers. You can't take action. It's much more proactive to have proactive data.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I love your, by the way, your analogy about the layered data, sales data layered over marketing. I don't know about you, but my brain went to like the 7 layered nachos. That dip, right? And you got the cream in there. You got the cheese, maybe some guacamole in there, olives, a little lettuce, maybe if you're, all that stuff. But when you have that, you have a real dip. Like how boring compared to that is salsa, right?
Right.
Okay, you got a little salsa, but like, where's the, you don't have a full meal there. You don't have what you're really looking for. And so, I mean, tell me about how many layers can you put on there? I mean, can you go crazy with this?
I think you can. You can. I think that's where the strategy comes in, where you're saying, okay, we have 1 million points of data, right? Okay. We have impressions and likes and clicks to open and, website, time on site, time on page, all of that stuff. So I think that's where you have to determine, what am I going to boil this down to so that my dashboard is I'm looking at maybe 5 or 6 different dashboards or different charts on this dashboard that are showing me layered data one over another. You talked about something on Good Morning America. So we've actually, we can layer social clicks over, let's say, trying to think of website hits, right? So let's say we sent out some paid social, right? And we had on a particular product. We did this with a retail client, paid social on a particular product. And we didn't have a lot of clicks on that paid social, right?
Okay.
But we did see web traffic on that particular product go up on the exact same day and the day after. So that's a loose correlation, right? That we can make to say, and we can look to the retail shop to say, okay, do you know what happened with that product? Were you doing anything in store with that product? Because we have this particular client keeps a Google sheet, right? Just a sheet that employees load in. We had this many customers roughly. This was the weather, right? These are some of the weird events that happened that day. So we can look, that's an example, minor example of just on that day, what were all the data points on that day. But we can see that we ran a social ad and the web hits went up and the product sales also went up. So we can make that correlation to the business owner to say, even though they didn't click, they went to the website and they bought the product, right? So those are some correlations that you can do. There are a lot of other more specific correlations where you can say, we sent this many people. I mean, we've done integrated marketing campaigns where we did a cable buy and email marketing, I think a direct mail and email. And we did a comparison of what was the CPU for the cable buy versus the social media buy. And we were able to determine that it was, we tracked it all. We were able to determine it was $900 if they came in from the cable buy, and $9 if they came in from the social media, right, channels.
Wow.
So, right. So there's, so there's your return. And if your average spend of that customer is around $75 per visit, let's say, then you can do the ROI math and say, okay, let's spend a little more on social and a little less in cable. That's not to say that always social is better than cable, right?
Right.
Because it's to say, from a measuring standpoint, perhaps on this particular campaign, you should spend more in this channel than that channel, and use that channel for branding, because we can determine that more people know about you, right? Because you're using a broadcast channel, if you will. There are just other ways to measure that.
You know, what I like about this conversation is that people used to poo-poo, maybe in the age of digital, to even get people on digital, the traditional, and probably rightly so.
Yeah.
But now with so much digital, we're seeing that direct mail, offline, something offline, real world IRL type campaigns can have a great benefit. And then also, which I think you know more than a lot of people, most people that I've talked to, is that combined effort of, maybe social was 9 because we had the TV ads, but if we didn't have the TV ads, social's like $3,000. And so you actually found this magnificent sweet spot because you were doing both.
Right. Exactly. I don't ever want to say, oh, don't use this channel, right? Or don't use out of door. Don't that's not my game. I think if you're trying to find the pink elephant that speaks French, use whatever channel, like try them all, boil it down, and try them all on different campaigns, but see what you're doing. Don't just try them all and, stick a finger in the wind and go, okay, well, I felt like that worked, or, that felt good, or that's what I don't like. I say use any channel that you think will work, but then measure it.
Yeah. Screw your feelings, right? Feelings are nice, but measure.
Feelings are nice,
but measure.
But measure your gut. Your gut is nice. Trust your gut, but then verify.
Yes. Trust but verify. Yeah. Yeah. Right. I think we need that in Latin, for marketing. What is trust but verify in Latin? I don't know, but we should find out.
I think there is. Yeah.
Trust but verify in Latin is confido sed cognoscere. There it is.
Cognoscere. Okay.
Yeah, if more people spoke Latin, maybe we make that the name of the episode, but I don't know if people would understand that.
that might be a good teaser though, right?
Might be. They'd be like, ooh, what is this? Or they'd be like, ooh, what is this? Either way. Yeah, exactly. And we could change it midstream because we're tracking it.
There you go. Go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the final thing I think is analyzing. So one of the things, again, because our 40-page report was too overwhelming, right? Too many data points. This was because it was too overwhelming, no one would read it. Our own team wouldn't read it, right? And they were putting it together. Right. You have to have that analysis. You have to have some highlights of the campaign, some lowlights of the campaign, because it can't all be perfect, right? Some things that we would need to do differently next time. And then I think, again, that's an opportunity to pull in other people, the client, the C-suite, whatever, to say, this is what we saw, and this is what we're seeing, but I'm not sure I'm understanding this. I'm not sure on this analysis. This is what I see from a marketing standpoint, but what does this mean? And how do I interpret this from a sales standpoint or from an operations standpoint, right? Help me out here. This is what I'm seeing. What do you think? Just do a little bit of collaboration on that analysis, but you have to analyze it, and you have to start somewhere to say, this is what the data is telling us, right? So that you can have that pushback. I think a lot of times Again, from a marketing standpoint, we hesitate to do that analysis because we don't think either we're qualified or it's only going to be one channel, not omni-channel. And I think let's involve other people in that analysis and say, well, I can tell you what I think it says. What do you think? And have that as a dialogue. I think that's invaluable. The analysis, particularly if you can spit it out in real time. And that's kind of what we're trying to work on, is to automate the analysis from a marketing standpoint. Right? Because if you set a strategy and the KPIs, then that's just a data point that you're tracking as you go. Right. And then you just add more information in as you go.
And capturing the data is great, but if you can't analyze, if you can't take action off of it, why even capture it in the first place, right? So I love that there's the idea of an analysis built in, and if you can automate it, all the better.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Then you don't have to wait for the analysis. It's literally right in front of you. The data is, and the analysis is too.
Exactly. I mean, if you can't analyze it until a month later, if you can't, obviously pay attention to it mid campaign, right? And you don't necessarily change mid campaign based on the analysis, but you have to be looking at it as you go in order to make those moves. And you have to collaborate, I think, to determine if the moves that you're making make sense for all of those data points that are layered in that dashboard. So.
It's a tricky thing that I think you've just highlighted, the idea that you could have the data in front of you midstream, but if you can't interpret it for a month later, it's like you had data after the fact anyways.
Paper report,
I can see
40
systems,
pages,
some people, even some apps saying, hey, we got you the data right now, but they're so confusing. It's not boiled down like you're describing. It's the 40 pages of data that not even your own team's going to read. That doesn't help you. You got to have that analysis real time as well to be able to make a change.
Exactly. And a lot of times that analysis can say, hey, are we pulling the right KPIs? That you have to be willing to have that kind of conversation as well, because what if you're not, right? I mean, there's no harm, no foul. Right? That the data points that you've always been watching and paying attention to may be the wrong data points. That would be a good thing. I know when we first started this, that was a key concern of our staff of what if we're not doing things right? And I was like, well, okay, wouldn't you want to know?
Right.
Right. Don't you want to know how it's performing? I do. I know the client does. So let's take a look, right? I mean, I think that you can't be afraid of it. And it has to be collaborative, and you have to be willing to change the points that you're looking at as you go. And that truly is the point of the conversation, to say, well, hey, let's layer this on top of this and see what we get, right? Until you finally do get a true KPI that will tell you we're tracking and we are contributing. That's where I think you get into a lot of the attribution modeling, right? It would be great to automate that and to customize it. It's easy. It's not easy. It's you can customize it. That can be built in to the dashboards and the strategy as well, to say, okay, for this particular campaign, we're using this particular attribution model, not saying it's the one and only attribution model, but we're going to use this one for this campaign and we're going to call it good. We have agreement around the table that this is going to be it, and this is what we're going towards. And not get into a fight of you use the wrong attribution model, or you know what I mean? Those are just conversations that need to be had, both before you build the dashboard or before, or as you're writing the measurement strategy. What are we going to agree to of where we're going to pull the data and how we're going to assign the value?
100%. And I think I highly recommend when you're doing that, working with technology, and a lot of systems have it so that you can change it on the fly, which is really helpful, because you may have it set to something, but then switching it over may show you something different. And I'm a big fan of first touch, but sometimes you might go even weighting and see if a particular trend pops out or something else shows up, or especially for more commerce wise, it's that last touch, but what was that first touch? I mean, it's so
Right.
kind of just
Right.
being flexible, being a little semper gumby, trying to just see where the trends might pop out. It can be really beneficial. And you doing that in math or trying to write something goofy in Excel is not going to be it. So you need to
No.
use some technology to give you that
Yes.
advantage.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I think when marketing is having those conversations with the C-suite or the client, it really it lends a little bit more credibility to the value that it can bring, right? Where it's less about, I'm not saying creative's not important, it is, but it's less about let's build this particular graphic or appealing website or something like that to drive traffic. It's really more into the analytics of the business and how we pull levers. It's all kind of a crapshoot, right? It's there. There are a million different things that you can do, but when you start looking at it from a how do I drive business and how do I align the marketing KPIs to the business KPIs, you're in the room a lot longer and you're given a lot more consideration when the budget talks happen. I really just believe that's how it happens. It can't be all we provide the creative that drive revenues. It just can't be.
100%. And one of the things you'd mentioned too, we talked a little bit about the offline world. Tell me about events. Are you going to start? Are you going to them again? Are you traveling again? Or sort of post-COVID days, or what are you seeing in the marketing world?
Yeah, I think we are starting to. I haven't checked inbound, and when that's happening, that's one of the ones that we have always attended in the past. One of the ones that we attended right before COVID hit was in Cleveland, and it was the MAYCON, which is probably a horrible acronym, but it's Marketing AI, Marketing Artificial Intelligence Institute conference in Cleveland. It was super interesting. That was kind of where our heads were, and we made some inroads there with a couple of people. But I thought it was interesting how
That is
AI,
interesting.
right,
Yeah.
impacts marketing, and that was just something that interested me.
You got to imagine that, Cleveland hasn't been that interesting before or since that conference happened.
Well, I will say this. A lot of the events I go to, I hate to say this, because my staff may see this podcast.
Revolt.
Yeah, maybe edit this part out. I will admit that some of the places that I go to for conferences may or may not be close to a national park that I haven't visited yet.
Well, I mean, supporting the environment is just part of the daily life. Sometimes I prefer to visit conferences in the desert because,
Yes, right,
desert living is clean.
right.
And, Vegas is in the desert, right? So, yeah, but Cleveland, I guess they just something.
Yeah.
Hey, if they can,
I think I think the founder is from Cleveland, has a marketing firm in Cleveland, and so he just doesn't want to leave, right? But there is a national park, the Cuyahoga Valley National Park is 45 minutes outside the town of Cleveland.
Okay, well then that whole trip was worth it, even if the conference was terrible. But marketing and AI are best buds, so I think there's plenty to be seen there. It's just maybe Cleveland itself. But hey, you know what? National Park can redeem the entire city. That's how bad it is.
There you go. Yeah. I had no idea until I saw that
and this podcast is clearly not sponsored by the city, the Chamber of Commerce of Cleveland, clearly. But if they want to sponsor, they can reach out to me.
There you go. There you go. I can hook you up.
Well, hey. Another quick question for you around books, reading. I mean, I do a lot of Audible books, the listening ones. Are there any things you've been listening to lately or reading, or ones that you recommend a lot?
Business books always, Radical Candor. I'm trying to think what else. I think I had one written down. It's the second book of the Tao by Stephen Mitchell. So yeah, I do a lot of Zen and Tao. I'm a big believer in that. And so Stephen Mitchell took not Lao Tzu's work, but some disciples of Lao Tzu I think it's Schwanzi,
Hmm.
was one disciple. And
I've heard that
so,
name before. Yeah.
okay, so it took kind of Schwanzi's teachings based on Lao Tzu's teachings and kind of boiled it down, kind of a hack, if you will, for the Tao. Easier to read, kind of irreverent, which I love, so that it's not so heavy. And I just love it. And it's a good book just to have on your desk and pick up. And I don't know if you've ever done this, but you just open it up, stick your finger and see what passage comes up and see if it's applicable to whatever you're dealing with that day. I know that's not a business book, but that's a great life book for me. And I'm all about that. I do read some business books, but I'm more into kind of books about just how do you live your life, and then business is a part of that. You know, your work is part of
100%.
that.
Yeah. Because we're all marketing to humans after all. And it really is
Right.
a human game. And you could know all the marketing strategy in the world, but if you're depressed and you can't get out of bed and you
Yeah.
don't want to be productive, then it doesn't really matter how much you know. You need to be able to be that balanced person, at least for a moment.
Yeah, at least for a moment.
Yeah.
There's another one that was interesting that I just finished not too long ago, and we actually did at a staff meeting. We talked about it. It's called Positive Intelligence by I think it's Shiraz Shamin. He's a neuroscientist that studies a lot of the obviously from a neurological standpoint. It's your personality traits, things like that, but from a neurological standpoint. And I really like that. I know my staff is big into Enneagram.
Oh yeah, Enneagram. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. I liked his book a little bit more because it has to deal with the science of the brain.
Yeah.
Um, as it relates to that. And so and he is a business coach, teaches business leaders and teams.
Hmm.
And it was very relatable. I really liked that as well. Radical
Powerful things.
Candor, yeah. Hmm?
Yeah, powerful things. I think what for me the Enneagram, what the takeaway I had was, I mean, it did have some sort of a spiritual tie into it, but one of the things that I got from it was that you had like a personality type, sure, but then it also showed you the one that you did when you were stressed out, and
Oh
it's like,
yeah. Oh
I was
yeah.
like, oh
And
yeah, that makes
yeah,
sense. It's like,
that's where you recognize yourself, right?
yeah,
Is on the stress. Right. Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, I am kind of like this, but then, oh yeah, I'm kind of like that too. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So, man, what's it like a powerful marketing conversation? I'm just really curious. Like, who are you? How do you know all these things? Can you just take me back in time to like little Kym days? Where did you grow up? Did you always know you're going to be running companies and teaching people marketing and building technology?
No, 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 and no. I grew up in Fort Smith, Arkansas.
Okay.
Only girl of four children, so three brothers. Just a small town girl. Catholics, went to Catholic school, big Catholic family. But I spent my grandfather on my mother's side passed away before I was born. And so she was a widow and had Arkansas is known for this. They raised chickens for Tyson, right? And they
Really?
just bought this hen house, yes. And so she had all of these, she had a business to run basically, and she was by herself. And so we went down to what we called the country, which was a town of like 200 people, where I was related to everyone there, and helped her every weekend. So I kind of feel like I'm a small town city girl with a country side too, because we would go down and feed the chickens and help with the cows that her brother ran. And she had a giant garden, so we would shuck corn and all that. So I have very much of a country background as well as a small town.
How old were you when you were doing that, shucking corn and helping out with the farm?
Um, six to about high school, pretty
Wow.
much. Yeah, yeah.
So you're working. So I mean, that must have just kept your feet planted on the ground and
I think
practical.
I think that's why I'm a lover of national parks and yeah, nature in general. And yeah, absolutely. I would attribute that to my grandmother's style of living. Um,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I
Very,
get that sort of dreamer quality, but also with the ability to be practical at the same time. Say, look, somebody's got to shuck this corn. It doesn't
somebody's,
shuck itself, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, exactly. Somebody's got to do the hard work. But then I did not envision being a business owner at all.
Right.
I had dreams of being a scientist. That was I wanted to be a researcher. And so I actually headed in that direction. I was a biology major in college. But um, I hate telling the story, but it is my story. I do and did impersonations as a kid. My brothers and I would do voices. And so in high school, I won a Valley Girl Sound Alike contest because there was money involved. And so,
Oh,
but
yeah.
part of it was also that you would get to be a guest DJ on this radio station for 2 days. So I was a guest DJ with a guy who also did voices. So that became our shtick. He would call me before school in the morning and he would say, okay, I'm going to do this and you do that voice and we're going to have this conversations. And so we did that. And then he just hired me as a disc jockey on the AM station, which was horrible. I didn't get to do voices. It was just punching buttons and doing a very lofty voice to make it sound like I wasn't 18.
Oh, geez.
Right. And so I did that. And then I went off to college and was doing my biology major. And I had a meltdown because I made a C in microbiology. I thought, well, I'll never be a scientist, right? If I'm in undergrad and I can't make a higher grade than that. And so in the meltdown, my mother said, well, you were a disc jockey, so maybe you should be a journalist.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I said, okay. So I switched my major to journalism and graduated with that. Got a job I got a job in college as a production assistant at a local TV station here in Oklahoma City. And then I was a reporter. Here's the other bad part of that story. I graduated college. I had the job at the TV station. The GM announced that they were going to do random drug testing and everyone left except for me. So don't do drugs. So yeah, they all left. I'm not kidding. So I was promoted to a reporter 2 months out of college. I was so bad. I was so bad.
But everyone else like bounced because of the drug test. But what an opportunity.
It was a great opportunity. It was an awesome opportunity, but oh my Lord, it was so bad. It was so bad. I made all my mistakes in a pretty big market. I mean, it was a size 30 market at the time. And it was
like 30,000. Is that what that?
I think I think there's like, I don't know, 200 some odd TV stations in the United States. And so they rank them that way. So this was number 30. It was a pretty big market. You're supposed to go down to like 100 right out of college and make all your mistakes there. And yeah, I didn't do that. I made them all here. So yeah.
Well, you make them nice and quick and then hopefully you'll learn from that.
Exactly. So yeah, so I in the meantime, during all of this time, my dad, who had worked for a car dealership as a mechanic, he opened his own shop. So he became the entrepreneur, the business owner in my family, reluctantly so. He didn't want to work for the dealership anymore, but he didn't think he could do his own business. And I think I inherited that from him, that fear of stepping out on my own, but I did that. So I'm fast forwarding past my, I was a reporter for 5 years here in this market. And then I was information director, public information director for a state investigative agency. I did that for a long time. And part of that was lobbying. And I loved lobbying as well for legislation at the Capitol.
Really?
Oh,
I mean, that just seems like a tough gig, or is it not? Is it just making connections, or is that just like a battle?
To do it as a state employee is a little bit tougher because you can't make the connections, right? You can't take them out to dinner. You can't be a typical lobbyist. So the way I did it, I don't know if that's the way everybody else did it, but the way I did it is I befriended the policy staff. right?
Oh
And
yeah.
said,
Yeah. Yeah.
hey, and so I found myself writing policy a lot, right? Just co-writing policy with staff, which was a blast. I loved that. And so that, yeah, that was fun. But then you did have to kind of run around and just manage the legislators a little bit, which is right.
So is there a future, mayor,
Oh no.
governor
No,
on
no, no,
the
no, no. The power is
podcast
in the
here?
policy writers. The power is in the policy writers. The power is not in the elected official, in my opinion.
Got it.
It's in the people behind the scenes that are writing the policy. Yeah.
So none of that experience made you think I should run for office sometime.
Oh, no. No, I think no. It's too you're too out front. And that's just I much prefer behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Much prefer behind the scenes. I mean, I was obviously in TV, I was a reporter, I was on TV. But I got in trouble a lot for not doing enough stand-ups. And my thought was, well, the reporter's not the story, so therefore I don't need to be on camera all the time. But I mean, they did kind of force my hand on that.
Trying to break the model on them. They can't handle it. They're like, no, this is the formula. I need you to do it this way.
Right. Do it this way. But to me, it was always about the story. And if I didn't have video to cover the story, I would do a stand-up. But if I had video, I don't need to be on camera.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Especially if you had live action, something happening on video. It's like, I don't want to see you. I want to see what's going on over here. Come on.
Right. Who cares? Right. So yeah. But obviously it's on camera as a spokesperson for the OSBI, but not in the policy work. That's what I preferred. So
Interesting.
and then jumped from there to the press secretary for Governor Henry, who was governor 2 governors ago. And I got to do a little policy work there too. Some of the policy work that I was involved in is why you can't buy Allegra, or is it Sudafed? Yeah, Sudafed over the counter anymore.
God, you're the one that messed up my meth cook.
I did. That was me. Sorry. It became national model legislation. I had no idea it would, but we were just trying to keep the meth labs from, overrunning the state.
Are you basically saying that you're the reason for Breaking Bad as a TV show? Like it all started with you?
Yes.
Is that what we're going to run with?
Yeah, that's it. I'm going to say that. No. Yes, I'm going to say that.
And then we'll use their logos and graphics at the beginning of the show with the theme song.
There you go. Oh yeah. Yeah. Somehow can you align that with the whole Latin?
Yes.
What was it? What we said?
Yes, the Latin.
But verify. Yeah.
Yes, trust but verify.
Trust but verify.
Confido sed cognoscere.
Yes.
If I'm saying that wrong, someone just email me. Fide sed verifica. Ooh. Clearly did not take a single minute of Latin in school.
I didn't either. I mean, and you would think, Catholic school, but whatever.
It's all Espanol. So, I mean, if you want to talk bachata, I'm there, but like, I got nothing else. I got no Latin.
I'm Tarzan French. I can speak this.
What is Tarzan French?
Well, that's when you say me, Tarzan, you, Jane. But in French.
Oh, so you sound like that to like a fluent. They'd be like, oh, who's this American who speaks Tarzan French? Yeah,
exactly.
Totally. See, the benefit for me with French is that I can be polite and I got nothing else. And I can't even try. But I'm just like, I've got enough to be polite. And then you need to help me with everything else. And then they seem to be okay with that when I went to visit.
As long as you try.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Because I'm not like, oh, I kind of am fluent. And they're like, no, you're not. Your grammar's all over the place. No, it's like, I got nothing. Please. Thank you. Thank you. Please.
Yeah. Please. Yeah.
Donde está el Eiffel Tower? Try a little Spanish on them, see what happens. And so where did the agency come from?
Oh, so jumped from the press secretary job. I wanted to try my hand in the corporate world, and I went to Cox Communication for a year, and I had the opportunity to jump out from that and take them as a client. And I just thought, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try. much wringing of hands and gnashing of teeth. I was just worried that I wouldn't know the business aspect of it. I thought, okay, I can do the PR side of it, right? That's my background. That's what I've done forever. But I didn't know the business side. And so that's what I worried about. But I had them as a client, and the very next day, this is the weirdest thing, I landed another client. It was the husband of a lady that I worked with at Cox who needed some help with crisis management and some help at the Capitol. And I had both of those. So I signed them. And then 6 months later, I signed a fairly giant client. That was our largest client for years.
Wow.
And that's kind of what I built the business on. I had them as PR, and then, social media hit, and we built up their social media channels. And so as we did that for that larger client, we kind of became their external marketing department,
Right.
for all things digital as well as PR. And that's how we built the rest of our business. We brought in other clients and built that as well.
Man.
And because they had such data, right, on their businesses, we had 60 of their businesses. Because they had all of these data points, we're like, we really want to get better at showing what our part of contributing to those businesses, what we're doing that contributes to those businesses. So that's when we built Oris. That's when we built the marketing analytics tool.
Wow.
And right now it's super custom, right? Because it was custom for them. It still is. It's not a SaaS product. We're calling it a service with software. So
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it makes sense. You need a team to go along with it, but it supports that and makes it all more efficient. Saves everyone time.
Right.
Saves everyone money.
And the insights, that's really
Insights,
that's where the service part is. But yeah, so that's we sold a good bit of the digital book of business from that one client to just last year during COVID. And so now we're kind of building back the agency side, and then obviously building out the analytics side as well.
Wow. All right. So I have this hypothetical for you. I may or may not have a time machine up here in New Hampshire. And let's say you're visiting New England and you get a chance to come use the machine, and you'll get a bottle of wine. You get to go use the time machine, maybe some lobster. It'll be a grand time. But this time,
parks?
What's that?
Are there national parks?
Oh yeah. The time machine is right next to a national park.
Okay.
Okay, cool. And then, so this machine takes you back in time, and you actually get to meet yourself. You get to meet yourself a few days after that college education, that journalism, and you just graduated a few days earlier. You get to meet that version of you, that Kym, and you get to talk to her too. What would you tell her? What kind of advice would you give her? What kind of things would you say?
I think I would basically tell that version of myself to do what you fear. I think maybe as I've gotten older, or I don't know. I've done a ton of crisis communications, and I feel like I can see all of the negative things. I think some of this might also be hereditary, but I feel like I can see all of the potential negative things almost automatically. And that has a tendency to make me pull back instead of move forward. I can do it for a client, super easy, right? But for myself, when I only see all of the bad things that could happen, I think it makes me hesitate and sometimes not jump. When every single time I have actually just jumped, the payoff has been amazing. So either do what you fear or ignore that voice in your head that's running the traps all the time, right? I think that would probably be good advice to that self, probably then and now.
Yeah.
And then the other one is why I read books like the Second Book of the Tao, or Wherever You Go, There You Are. And that is just let it be. Just, you cannot push the rope, right? You just can't. So quit worrying about all of the potential things. I mean, it's probably the same advice. You can't push the rope. You can make certain things happen, obviously. You can do your best. But then you have to let it ride.
Yeah.
And
Let
be
it
okay.
ride.
Let it ride. And be okay with it and make the best out of whatever happens. That also, I've noticed if I look back or, even as I get prepared for something, invariably that will be a lot easier, right? It'll be a lot easier,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Your
That's how I feel
experience.
about podcasts. You hit record and just let it ride and see what happens. And you know what? It ends up working out great.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I was talking about how horrible I was as a reporter in that market. My first live shot was from a city council meeting in a town outside of Oklahoma City. And I was prepared. I did all the prep for it. And I started the live interview, and the whole right side of my body started shaking uncontrollably.
Oh,
Like,
no.
I mean, I was like, what is this? It's never done it, but never did it before, never done it since. But luckily, the man that I was interviewing saw it and just kind of took over, just started talking so that I could like compose myself. So yeah. So there's a podcast experience for you. You haven't had that happen to you yet, right?
No. I've definitely
Probably not.
introduced people wrong. And it's fun to, I probably just like with you listening back to early you reporting is me listening to episode sub 10 or 20 even. The very first episode I don't think I even had a agenda or a script. I just got on with a friend and we're like, let's chat about marketing because we have good conversations, and it went fine. And then, very quickly I had Adele Ravella, who I probably had no business talking to just yet on the podcast, schooling me about buyer personas, and just away we went, and it sort of developed over time. But yeah, looking back on those episodes, it's bizarre and how it all works out.
But you just let it ride, and look what happened. Look where you are. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
You just keep doing it.
You keep
You
doing
just
it.
keep
You do your
going.
best with what you have at the time, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, all that work pays off.
100%.
Yeah.
Now, I can't let you get out of here before I ask you about this national park thing. You freaking love national parks, and you're on an adventure, right? Are you trying to get to all of them in the US, or what is the
Trying
mission?
to get to all of them, or as many as I possibly can. I had a friend that got to 20 this year. I'm so jealous. I think I'm only I'm not even halfway through. I'm probably at 24, and there's 60 now because they just made the Great Sand Dunes just became one, and I think they reinstituted Escalante, but I don't know if it's a park. I think it's a monument.
Wait, how many are there national parks?
60.
60.
Yeah.
How many have you been to?
24. So,
which you're not even halfway yet, but that's probably a lot more than everyone.
Yeah,
that is a lot.
I don't know. That would be a good statistic to pull. I don't know. I mean, I just started this journey maybe 5 years ago. I mean, so a lot of the ones that I've been to, I went to as a kid.
Right.
And so I will not revisit them until I get, to the new ones. But I mean, there are a lot in Alaska, but that's a lot of landmass.
Ooh, yeah.
Right. So I'm gonna have to spend like a month in Alaska to get all 5. But I did the Fab 5 or the Fantastic 5 in Utah in like a week. So, and that was amazing. I had no idea Southern Utah was such gorgeous country. I mean, I knew that monuments were there, but I didn't know until I went. So it was awesome. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Looking at a map.
You're looking at a map. You're looking at a
map of the US of all the national parks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, interesting. See, I'm out east, and we've got Acadia, which I've been to, but then a few on the east. But man, there's a lot out west.
A lot out west. A lot in Utah, California, Alaska has a ton.
You grew up in
Florida,
one, right? Hot Springs.
Hot Springs, yes. That's a weird one. I mean, there's the national forest, which is beautiful, but the hot springs is like the hot springs bath. That's weird to me. I mean,
Huh.
it's not, I mean, it's a natural spring. So I guess that's why. It has an interesting history. You know, that's where all the, I don't know if you're a baseball fan or not, but that's where spring training was in the 20s.
Uh,
Yeah.
hot
When
springs, spring training.
mhm. Yeah. That's where all the, you know, I guess the mafia was big there for a
Oh,
time.
gotcha.
That's where it's an interesting history.
See, I think I've probably been to maybe 5 of these. Look at
Yeah.
this list. Yeah, so that makes
Yeah.
24 a little bit more impressive now to me, especially because they're scattered about and not too many out our way. I'm one near me, and that's it.
Yeah.
You have to
Acadia.
travel.
I haven't been to Acadia.
Oh yeah, oh definitely want to hit that one up. There, it's just
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Mount
For sure.
Rainier as well out west.
Mhm, mhm. You've
Amazing.
done that, Mount Rainier.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's fantastic. Oh, I see a lot. I see what you mean. Oh my gosh, there's gates of the Arctic way at the tippy top.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't, you gonna save those for last? You're gonna save Hawaii for last, or maybe American Samoa.
You know, probably Hawaii for last. I mean, I need to go to Alaska. I want to see so many in Alaska,
Mhm.
and I want that sooner than later. Yeah, but I've been to the Virgin Islands,
Okay.
and that one's amazing. I haven't been to the Dry Tortugas. I haven't done that one yet. Uh, I haven't done Acadia. There's one in near Chicago. It's an odd
Is that
one.
the Indiana
Yeah,
dunes?
the dunes in Chicago. That's an odd one.
Huh.
There's the Great Sand Dunes in Colorado too, which is also strange. You
Wow.
can actually sled down the dunes in a little plastic sled,
Oh,
and there'll be snow all around you.
right. And you know what? 60's a lot, but man, this actually seems like a really cool goal. How did you stumble across this? Did you have you had that for a while or?
I have, like, about 5 years ago, you know, people were talking about their bucket list, and I'm like, okay, what is my bucket list? And it just said it as that. At the time I was running, and so I was looking for cool places to do races, right?
Yeah.
And I've kind of hung up my running shoes since then, and I just thought, well, it kind of got me on the looking at cool places there. Just thought, well, what national parks are around there? We could go to a national park while I'm there. And so then I thought, well, why don't I just go to all these national parks? So that's kind of that's probably how I do everything, right? You get on an internet spiral, right? And just come
Usually
up
at
with
1 a.m. when you should be sleeping, and then get on some
exactly.
idea. No, for those listening, I recommend you do a quick Google national parks. For those not in the U.S. national parks, just to get a sense for what we're talking about. And
Yeah.
I'm sure folks listening abroad have the parks across their countries as well. But just
Mhm.
I didn't even some of those I hadn't heard the names. I didn't even know that's where it is, that pin on the map. And that seems like a really cool
Yeah.
goal to just try to get to all these places.
Right. And so, and if you're own your own business, then, find a conference with a national park
Right.
nearby.
Right. Hopefully it's in the same industry, but either way, who's
Oh, there
counting?
you go. Yeah, whatever works.
This is a manufacturing industry conference over here. Oh, well, they need marketing, they need
Yeah,
PR.
no, that's right. That's
Yeah,
right. You
find some
know.
people. Man, that's amazing. Well, where can people connect with you if they want to reach out? They want to talk more about PR, marketing. They want to get more information on Oros. Throw out all the URLs, all the social platforms, all that good stuff.
Well, I should probably give the company URLs because the company is a little bit more active than I am. And
Hmm.
so Oros Analytics is orosanalytics.com, OROS. And Cook Communications is Kochcom, KOCHCOMM.com. And that's where you can find us on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter. We're all Instagram. I'm not as active as I should be. That's one of my goals for 2022 is to get a little bit better on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not been a focus of mine. It's kind of that be in the background kind of thing that I prefer to be, and I prefer the company to be out there. But I think I need to do a little bit more on LinkedIn, and I've taken a couple of classes to get a little bit better, but don't look at the LinkedIn profile just yet. It's not where it needs
Okay,
to
well,
be.
maybe by the time this comes out, maybe
Yes.
we make that a little motivation for you,
Yes.
and then a bunch of friendly listeners to the show can just shoot you an
Totally.
invite and tell you they heard you on the show and they really liked your head to talk about, and maybe they need to get some more help with analytics or PR or marketing. And
Great. That'd be
yeah,
great.
totally. Well, Kym, thank you so much for coming on here. This has been like just the best chat ever.
Thank you, Casey. This has been awesome. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. And for those people listening, if you've learned something, and I freaking know you have, because I literally have 2 pages of notes front and back over here, then share this with someone else. Be a thought leader. That's how you do it. You just share some content with someone else and teach them something that you learned. And that really gets this podcast all around the world. And that's how we help people out. And man, Kym, this is amazing. Thank you again.
This is awesome. Thank you. I really do. I really appreciate it. It was great fun.
Great fun indeed. Now I'm going to get to some national parks. And with that, I got to get out of here so I can go get to the national park. So for those people listening, this has been the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will see you all next time.